say that responded to you. Follow it up.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our City Council meeting for December 16th. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. We almost have a full council tonight. Deputy Mayor Spivey and Councilmember Agnew are absent and excused. We do have a short agenda tonight, a lot of items on consent. Are there any changes, additions?
Mr. Mayor, I had one addition, which is the matter of the stipend for the Planning Commission. I had spoken with the city manager after our meeting, and I had believed mistakenly that was included in our budget and is not. So I'd like to make a motion to that effect tonight, and I can add that after consent or after our second item, whatever your pleasure is.
Let's hit it up after the AB 14200.
Thank you.
Does that sound good? I see some nodding heads. Anyone else? Councilmember Sandberg?
I'd like to pull 14197 from the consent,
Okay.
and that's it.
And there was also some corrections made to the minutes, and spelling corrections. Those are before us tonight. Councilmember Sandberg, I think you caught those. Don't know that we need to pull them, but okay, great. So the motion when consent goes forward would be to approve the minutes that are before us as corrected. Great. Councilmember Sandberg,
And then I had a question about the projected agenda.
let's jump right onto it. Sure.
It looks like our January 6th meeting is a little light, and so I thought maybe we could cancel the January 6th meeting and combine those items on January 13th. I mean, it might provide for all the vacations that happen during the holiday season, and people aren't stressed to get things into the agenda packet, and unless there was other items that were to be scheduled on January 6th that I wasn't aware of.
I don't know if the item number 5 on 6 has to be passed on that date or not.
No, I think they could wait till the 13th. We typically, when we're holding a retreat also during February or like January, we usually cancel one of the meetings during that particular month, so this works out well.
Do we have dates that we can throw out at this point for the council retreat? Just so we can get those in advance, maybe?
Yeah, I think those were published to council. Trying to recall the dates. So I'm hearing the 31st and then the 24th was another.
31st or 24th of
Yeah,
January?
They would have both been Saturday. And Catherine Jensen in my office, I know, has been collecting feedback from some of you. I'm not sure if you all have responded back to her yet, though. But if you could do that, that would be great this week. Then we can.
Who's responded? Councilmember Sandberg?
I-
Works for you.
I responded that I cannot make the 24th, but I can make the 31st.
Okay. How about you, Councilmember Ram?
I can make both.
Okay. How about you, Councilmember Lamb?
I can make both, although I would prefer to do it on a Friday, both for staff and for council.
And how about you, Councilmember Evans? Either day is fine. Okay. And the 31st works for me. I mean, either day works since it doesn't work. The 24th doesn't work for you. Seems like a majority. Have you heard back? I guess you wouldn't know. Maybe Catherine would know. So you've heard from 5 people tonight. Maybe if you can track down the other 2 and see if the 31st would work.
We may have their input. I just don't have it this evening.
Okay. Great. Be nice to keep it in January, sooner rather than later. Any other items on the projected agenda? We do not have a special presentation tonight. The presenter for the King County Conservation District is sick and unable to attend, so we'll look forward to hearing from Melissa in the future. So we do have a visitor section. I have one sign-up sheet. Do you have a comment?
Did we go ahead then and cancel the first meeting? Was that
Yes.
okay? Great.
Does that sound agreeable to everybody? Okay, good. The first sign-up on this sheet is Sandy Gwynn. Ms. Gwynn, nice to see you again this evening.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. At the last council meeting, About 58 minutes into the meeting, a council member asked staff if the RFA impacted our budget in response to my public testimony. And the response was the RFA has no impact on this budget whatsoever. A budget amendment would be required, and a lot of discussion would have to happen before that would ever take place, and of course, voter input is required. I'd like to somewhat respectfully disagree. December 2nd, Agenda Bill 14-193, about 49 minutes into the meeting. If I may on this and this is from a council member, if I may on this subject, we definitely need to keep discussing this. I think we are, as council member said, we are getting to that point where we are the size of a city where we need to have a parks department with its own director. I think one of the reasons why we need to keep this discussion going and through the retreat is there are possible opportunities later on where if the RFA Planning Committee comes back with a recommendation to move forward and that vote passes, and now there would be some revenues that we could in assistance with moving forward, too, with some reclassifications and finding a little here and there to help kind of fill that void to meet that goal. So I think there are some possible opportunities down the road, but to capitalize on that, we just need to continue to have this discussion so that is in the forefront when the opportunity arises, if it should. In the budget book, under Key Goals Fire Department, Regional Fire Authority Study and Potential Implementation, on page 2 and 18 of the Fire and Emergency Medical Services Department of the budget, there is reference to it, and I do want to also mention on page 11, future budgetary impacts to consider Regional Fire Authority. When I was talking, it was about the future, and what you pass does have an effect on whether or not you need revenue to come in. One last comment. At the February 5th, 2013 council meeting, it was expressed by council member, you know right now we're not financially in the best shape, but we are better than most cities. Right now, if an RFA goes through, we do nothing. This city gains $9 million annually. That is a lot of money that we're talking about here, and that's enough money for a parks department, and that's enough money to fund a lot of the issues we are having. The quicker we look at this, the better it is for everyone involved. If the feasibility study supports an RFA, the city should let the fire department take the ball and run with it and talk to the taxpayers into voting for it. My sole purpose to coming to speak about the budget was as you go forward with your retreat and as you pass the budget, obviously there are expenditures in there. You need to be mindful of what the citizens can pay. Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Thank you.
And I apologize for talking so fast, but I kept it under 3.
You really did. It was quite impressive. Thank you so much, Sandy, and nice to see you. Merry Christmas. I do have a second shine-up sheet here. I believe the name is Far Godasi. Sir, if you would help me correct how I pronounce your name. Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome, and as all speakers, you do have 3 minutes.
So I'd like to present 4 letters to the council members. I made enough copies for the mayor and council members. So what I'm presenting to you tonight is primarily 4 objections in regard to the proposed gun range. And the first objection is from Rivercroft Apartments. This is a multifamily community across from the proposed gun range. And I have a letter from Liz Fossati, who's the community manager. I'm presenting that to you tonight. I have a second artifact, which is an email from Dave DeBlois. Him and his wife are the majority owners of the Eagle Ridge multifamily apartment units adjacent to the Rivercroft Apartments, and they're opposing the gun range that is being proposed. And the third artifact is from West Point Properties. I'm the sole owner of that LLC, and I own commercial property adjacent, starting from to the Eagle Ridge multifamily apartments all the way down that entire block those are the commercial properties there that I'm the owner of. And also, I'm a homeowner in the city of Bothell. So I have a letter from that perspective. And so the reason I'm here tonight is because, as I said, I oppose the gun range. This is a highly dense populated area. There are approximately 130 residences across from this proposed development. And it's a very family-oriented community. There are many children in the area, and we have the commercial business district 850 feet away from the proposed site. And so many of my tenants are getting worried, and it's already having some impact on the economic vitality of the area. Now, what the city of Woodinville did is they imposed a moratorium to stop the development of any gun range. And that was done. And what I'm asking the council to do is to take the same steps to pass a moratorium and for an extended period of time, and then look at the details very carefully and set some conditions for what is appropriate for a gun range. I believe that this site is not conducive for a gun range. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question. You mentioned the sound pollution. What do you know? Is it an outdoor gun range? What is
This is an indoor gun range that's being proposed. And even with an indoor gun range, in availability, from a perspective of decibels, you're still going to have some noise pollution. So it's inevitable that that's going to happen.
Have you looked at the application? I mean,
Yes.
Are they saying that sound will be admitted? They're just saying they'll meet?
Well, I haven't. I've looked at the application, but that's a real concern. I mean, that's one of the concerns. There are multiple concerns with this proposed development. It just, we just feel that because of the highly dense populated area, we have having the commercial businesses and having the residences there, we just don't believe that it's a appropriate site for that type of development. And by the way, I'm a City of Bothell High graduate, so I have some ties to this community. I'm not just somebody that showed up.
You won't hold it against me that I'm an Ingham graduate?
Well, I don't know about that. We'll talk that over.
I'm just curious. It seems like you do know a lot about the facility. Have you met with the owners and seen
No,
if
I have not.
maybe could mitigate these concerns? Because obviously we are involved in government up here, but I always think it's best when neighbors get together to address each other's concerns without having to call government in. Potentially there's a way that they could satisfy a couple of these concerns that you may have. A suggestion to you.
Right. I have not met with the owner, and it's just that what I do know is that this, I believe the same owner approached the city of Woodinville, and as a result of that, the city did put a moratorium on any gun range for a period of 6 months until they came up with detailed conditions on what would be appropriate for a
So
gun range.
for me, I don't know what the legal matters would be, but I think once an application is into the city of Bothell, we put a moratorium on that when already the use would be a legal use. Don't know what that
believe
exposes us to.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but
Yeah.
I do know that the city council has the legal power to do just about anything. So I mean,
I don't think that is an accurate statement. Even if we
city
imagined
attorney-
we'd want to have that power, I don't think that we would. My point at this is, it seems as I hear and understand this is going forward, right? As it's proposed, you might want to be able to meet with the buyer or the developers to maybe address some concerns. Because if, as I understand it, this is a legal development, if they're meeting the sound levels, you might want to take this opportunity to go sit down with them and say, hey, we have some concerns. That's what I'm encouraging.
Right.
Councilmember Sandberg would love to jump in on this as well.
Could we have the community development director talk about the possibility of a moratorium? Is a moratorium something that can be?
As a point of information, and I actually am an attorney, I would suggest that we not have a discussion of any moratorium in a public session in light of the gentleman's comments and in light of what's being considered. I think if we want to discuss a moratorium, it's something that we should discuss in an executive session because that's a matter that would clearly have implications for legal proceedings.
Well, I'm
To the
not.
city attorney, what is your thought on that matter? Well, you can certainly be given an opinion as to the general parameters of what a moratorium involves and what it takes to impose a moratorium in general. But if you want to get into the specifics of this particular matter, my advice would be to discuss the potential legal pitfalls in a executive session before taking that to an open discussion. It's not to say you can't have an open discussion of the issue. It's just I'm advising an executive session first.
So I would just like the former, when you talked about sort of the general principles. The speaker has asked that we consider a moratorium, and I don't know the parameters under which a moratorium in general could be applied. And so if you could speak to that generally, I think that would be helpful.
I'm open to hearing, if you're willing. Bill? Okay. And if we want to reserve this, we do have an executive session this evening on other legal matters. Potentially, we could take it up at that point. Well, just in general, moratorium is a procedure, a method that that cities do have to put a freeze on a particular type of development for a limited period of time while they're actively pursuing remediating their code and looking at whether or not there's holes in the code, holes in what needs to be the regulations that are in place. You can do that, but whether or not it would affect a particular application that's already been filed is highly questionable. And to get more detailed than that, we'd want to my advice is an executive session, and also come back when staff is more prepared to address the issue in more depth. Great. Any more questions for the speaker, potentially?
Well, I was curious, did you read the Seattle Times series on lead pollution in gun ranges?
Yes, I did. I'm very well aware of that, the situation in Bellevue. Right.
Okay.
And there was an article in the Woodinville Weekly as well in regard to this gun range a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure Mr. Mayor and council members have seen that. So,
great. Well, thank you for coming in, and thank you for just taking the time to express your feelings on this matter.
thank you.
I don't have any other sign-up sheets. Is there anybody else from the public who'd like to address council? Sir, if you want to come forward and state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is David Johns Bowling. I'm here. I just wanted to thank the City of Bothell. I'm with Congregations for the Homeless, and we run homeless shelter services on the east side and have been around for 21 years. You guys have a consideration and are proposing funding us for the first time in quite some time, and I just wanted to come and thank you for that. Last year we served about 675 different men on the east side. We've served Bothell people. I want to share a quick story. There's one gentleman, recent case, who came through our shelter program where we have full case management. He came, he had no job, had not a lot of hope, and he came into our program, started working with our case managers, and within a few months he got a job at Goodwill, got some training there, and after you get to some consistent income and it looks clear that you've dealt with your issues and you're going to be able to keep that, we have subsidized housing. So he was able to enter our subsidized housing. He's been there for 3 months now, and he's increased his hours at Goodwill. So when his hours increase, his rent increases, so he's moving closer to stability. Another gentleman I was thinking of, he left us about 1.5 years ago from Bothell that had come through our program and was successfully went through, gotten our housing, and left with full market rent. We serve a lot of other people. I just wanted to share a couple quick stories with you as well. And I'm really excited about partnering closer to make sure that we are serving Bothell residents better. So just wanted to thank you guys.
Sir, I really appreciate your service to the community. I just, right before coming to council tonight, and the invitation is actually to our full council and staff as well, to go visit a food bank that we have in Bothell. It's up at Candy Hills Community Church, and they tonight are serving 120 plus families with Christmas dinner for next week, serving them dinner tonight, and on a weekly basis they're serving this population, and the need is greater than even they can serve. So it's neat to know there's organizations that are out there serving those who are facing difficult times. So Bless you.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
support.
it.
Have a good night.
Thanks. And on that note, I would like to invite council, and I'll look for a time, hopefully sometime in January, where we could go up collectively and see what's going on there. Because we have an exposure to several people in the community who are in need that may not know the resources that are out there. So here's an opportunity for potentially for us to tour and then point people to that direction. So other people from the community, ma'am, if you come forward, state your name for the record.
Good evening. I'm Danette Clemens. I'm the Executive Director of the North Shore Senior Center, and I'm just here on behalf of our Human Services Funding application. Just would like to thank the City and the Council for your continued funding of our 3 programs, the Adult Day Health Program, our Transportation Program, and the Senior Center, and just what a difference it makes in the daily lives of these seniors. Our Transportation Program gets a lot of seniors out of their homes. One of our members actually is turning 100 this year, and she's at our Senior Center 3 days a week, and if it wasn't for our ability to transport her because she has given up the decision to drive, it makes a huge difference in her daily life and keeps her to be a very vital, active member of our community. So thank you very much for all that you do on behalf of the Senior Center.
And thank you for your leadership as well. Anyone else from the community wish to address council this evening? All right, seeing none, we do have a balance of the consent agenda, which item 14-197 was pulled, but everything else is on the table.
I'd move approval, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lamb and a second by Councilmember Evans. If everybody could place their vote and the clerk display. Passes unanimously with Councilmember Agnew and Spivey absent and excused. So, Councilmember Sandberg, you polled 14-197.
Yes, thank you. So I had sent a couple of questions previously, and so I don't know if staff is prepared to answer those. And this is regarding considering approval of the professional service agreement with the City of Everett for animal sheltering services.
Looks like who from staff would be addressing that? Welcome.
Thank you.
So I support the change. I think the staff made a strong proposal on why we should end our contract with PAWS and enter into an agreement with the City of Everett. But I was curious as to why the contract was for the amount that it was. Like that was, I would imagine that was anticipated impacts for the next 2 years. And so we'd received previous information, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, that in 2013 we had to transport 18 animals to PAWS. And so I was just trying to do a little bit of math and figure out how we got to this new anticipated contract cost of $70,000 or $35,000 a year.
Yeah, that's a great question. The breakdown as far as 18 animals, that is one specific category. So we actually transported a lot more animals to PAWS, but they're counted in other categories. So, for example, for 2013, we actually transported, starting 2012, we took 127 animals to PAWS, and then in 2013, we took a total of 78 animals to PAWS. But in addition to that, the amount that we were invoiced for from PAWS was 157 animals, because we pay for also all the strays that are brought in by Good Samaritans and citizens.
Okay. And so there's a sheltering fee, and presumably if a person is going to come back and get their animal, they're going to pay for that fee.
Right.
So are we not getting reimbursed, or?
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest problems that we've had, and one of the things that we are hoping to improve by going to Everett, which is that with PAWS, very rarely we're collecting the fees from owners before turning the animals back over. And a lot of times it was because they were adding on several additional fees of their own for their own cost recovery. So somebody may pay, $500 to pause to pick up their animal, but they don't have enough to then pay the city fee, and pause would turn the animal back over. Wherever it will actually, they don't add on all the extra fees, and they do collect the fee before turning the animal over, unless we ask them to turn the animal over as a waiver for some reason, for special circumstances. So for each of the years, we had significantly the number 18, and I sent a response. I don't know if it was received or not, but basically the 18 number it's misleading because it's just one area in a statistic where there were hundreds of animals actually brought to pause, but we get charged every time that pause doesn't collect the fee from the owners, which adds up to thousands of dollars.
So presumably, in going with this contract with the city of Everett, they are going to collect that fee, and we are going to be reimbursed.
Correct. So we don't get reimbursed. What happens is we don't get invoiced for it. So they collect the fees. But that's only for the situations where owners actually pick up the animals, because a lot of times the owners are never located, or people submit animals to the shelter because it's an animal surrender type of situation. So in those situations, we get billed as a city for those, and the shelter would be unable to collect that from the owner.
And so we pay for this program, this pet sheltering program, through the revenues that we collect through the pet licensing.
Correct.
And so we encourage our pet owners of the city to license their pets because that fee goes to supporting, animal welfare and enforcement. And so do you know how much revenue the pet licensing has generated?
I do.
Since we started?
Yeah. Not the total since we started. I can tell you in 2012, our licensing revenue was $67,581. In 2013, it was $69,523. And in 2014, our figures just run through October. We don't have the updated numbers, but through October, we were at $63,771.
And so the $70,000 is a projected cost. Presumably with this new contract, it would be
So the
lower?
$70,000, I should mention that the $70,000 covers more than just the sheltering. So the $70,000 is actually in a line item that covers all professional services for animal control. So that can include not just sheltering, but that also includes costs of emergency euthanizations, emergency veterinarian fees. There's other fees as well that is covered in that line item, different court costs sometimes when we have hearings, hearing examiner fees. So different items get covered and coded out of that line item. So the actual sheltering costs are projected to be a little bit lower, at least that's what we're hoping for with moving to Everett Animal Shelter, but still the $70,000, it was a little bit it's a little bit confusing to see the $70,000 on there because that actually covers the entire line item of professional services that was in the 2015-16 budget.
okay. All right, thanks. That concludes my questions.
Great. Councilmember Ram.
So if my dog gets collected, does he go immediately to Everett, or does the police department try to contact me before? Because he's got my phone number on his neck and a chip in his back. And
The first thing that we do is always try to contact the owner because it's good for the city, it's good for the owners, it's good for the animal, and that's the best way to do it. And that's part of the advantage of licensing is that it's much easier to track down owners and return the pets to the owners. But if we cannot find the owner, if we can't track down the owner, then the animal gets taken to the animal shelter.
okay, great, thanks.
Anyone else? No? Do you have a motion?
Sure. I'll move to approve the professional service agreement with the City of Everett for animal sheltering services.
Second. So we have a motion with recommended action. Any discussion?
I'm going to speak in favor of the motion. I just wanted to say that the police department, we oftentimes get feedback about the police department and good things, and I just wanted to express on behalf of this council member that I hear all the time about our animal control officer and the great job that they're doing in our community, and I really, really appreciate your work. I think it's been a great program that we've instituted, and it's helped us care for, as a pet, I have more pets than our house than we should, but but I care a lot about animals. My children care a lot about animals, and having people in our city who really look out for their welfare and look out and contact them has been, I think, one of those services that has been noticed and appreciated, and I just wanted to pass along my personal thanks tonight.
Thank you. We'll pass that on to our staff as well.
Great. Councilmember Sandberg.
And I also wanted to thank staff for their efforts in animal control and make a little public service announcement plug to encourage pet owners to license their pets because it's the pet licensing fees that support this program, and encourage people to put identification on their pets. I live on a park, and for some reason when the dogs get loose, that's the first place they go to play. And I've probably picked up over 10 dogs, and most of them didn't have any collars. And I didn't take one to a shelter to pause because I know how expensive it was to the city. But if people identify their pets, the ability to return that pet is so much easier, and it saves so much money. So if you're not going to license your pet, please put identification on it.
Thank you. So we've all had an opportunity to speak. If everybody could place their vote. Clerk can display. Passes unanimously. Thank you so much for your presentation and answering questions this evening. Next item on the agenda is AB 14200, and Peter Troedson, our Assistant City Manager, is here with a presentation.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Apologies for that short delay there. What you see up here is also available to you in your packet, so I apologize for the eye chart of that. It's probably pretty difficult to read from where you sit, but again, you have a copy in your packet. Human Services continue to be funded at $7 per person in Bothell, per citizen, and that comes out to, as you see, $290,500 in 2015 and $294,000 in 16. On this list, you will not find the North Shore Clinic. We discussed that briefly and talked about a $5,000 support for them, but as you know, King County has funded that clinic. So the consideration that we gave to that effort at the last minute in response to their plight has not been included. I'd like to note, just for your general information, that during this year's audit, the state auditor paid very close attention to our monitoring and oversight of human services agencies, and I think we can expect that in the future. And what that means for us is I personally anticipate an increase in workload due to the requirements to be more diligent, if you will, to scrutinize more closely, and that may drive down the number of grant recipients that we acknowledge in the future, or it may drive us back to the Northeast Funders Group, which is the group that we have used in the past. And I'm currently investigating the possibility of rejoining that group. There's a couple of advantages that they provide, one of which is a centralized review of each of these agencies so that would satisfy the auditor's requirements. So the significant and wide-ranging need in the area is reflected in all of these different agencies that you can see. And there we go. So anyway, that just gives it a good idea of how much need there is in the area. And each of these agencies provides services not only to Bothell, but also to other cities in the region. And that completes my presentation, other than tell you Merry Christmas. Any questions?
Right back at you. Merry Christmas. So I do have a question to start off. The choices for the Human Services Committee to make these choices, I imagine, is difficult because, as we've noticed and we all know, while the need is great, curious. Obviously, alcohol has greater access than it's ever had before, with going into grocery stores and Costco and such. The Center for Human Services, we did decide not to support the substance abuse program. Was there, I mean, obviously there's limitations, but was there a certain reason, or is just we figured needs are greater elsewhere?
And would you give me the line here?
Up on line 10. Well, let's see. Center for Human Services was the fourth line down.
Hang on.
I don't know. Maybe my page looks different than yours.
There we go.
Oh, there it is. Line 5.
No, actually, they're funded at
Oh, they are
$7,604.
funded.
That zero is what they were awarded last year. So they made a request this year for $30,000.
Okay, there we go. Perfect. Anyone else? Councilmember Evans.
Thank you. I served on this committee for 2-3 years when I first got on the council, and it was very interesting going through these applications. There's a lot of questions they answer and a lot of good information. And it seems like to me we had a outside group reviewing those applications way back when. And we went away from that because I thought we felt a little bit better. I think that's when one of the ladies that's not here now was over that program and did a lot of internal review of those and felt like we got a better look at things than what maybe an outside agency would do.
Right. I'm not really aware of the whole history, but I think the concern there was that that group, we're the only city within that group that has a presence in Snohomish County. So the idea was that we needed to make sure that the Snohomish residents were as well served by our funding as were the Bothell residents. So that's why they pulled out of it. However, since then we found out that being a part of that group won't prevent us from serving in Snohomish County as well. We can still fund those groups, those agencies that make a request in that part of the city.
Right. I know that was an initial concern way back when that we weren't getting some of the funding up into the Snohomish County area, and I think we've obviously made improvements in that, and we are funding Snohomish County programs also, and that's great. A couple questions I have. If I added the numbers right in the 2013-2014 biennium, it looks like we awarded about $225,000 or somewhere around there. I didn't see a total on column C.
Right. Yeah, the total was...
Maybe I read somewhere it was maybe 277,000, but
yes,
as I told anyway, somewhere 200+ thousand.
27,695.
And I can remember struggling with the requests way back when that we always got more requests than we had funding for. But it's interesting. This year or the next biennium, we're going to be spending 290,000. Is that says per year? So the 2013-2014 award was, if that's for both years, that was 225,000. So now we're up to.
Well, remember we've annexed.
Right.
About?
So we're up to around $700,000 now that we're putting out in human service grants.
No, the total is. Well, it's 290,515.
That's for the first year or both years?
That's the first year.
Okay.
And then in 16, it's 294,000.
Okay, so
I know that
almost 600,000, right? So that seems to be quite a jump from what it's been in the past, which is great. But it seems like to me we had a lot more applications than we had in the past, and maybe this is an indication of our economy getting a little better, whatever the case may be. But and I see there's a lot of new groups in here this year, or at least groups who were not funded in the 2013-2014 biennium.
Right.
So I guess, is there anything that the committee found was a difference between the 2013-14 biennium and what we have now? Seems like to me we had more applications before.
Well, for the 13-14 biennium, we actually got 51 requests. So the number of requests went down this year. And we suspect, we speculate, I should say, that that's because we did move away from that Northeast funders group. So I do expect that the next time we go through this process, we'll get more than we got this time.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
And if you look at the zeros, the other part of your question was there were new requests. That some of those new requests appear new, but as you heard the gentleman say earlier, he had been funded a number of years ago. He just wasn't funded in the last biennium.
That's correct. That's what I see from the chart here. Okay, well, I appreciate the committee's work on this because I know it is a process to get through all these applications, and it's certainly a worthwhile program, and I'm glad to see that we have the funding for both years of the biennium, or both years in the biennium. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
so I think just to responding to the issue that Councilor Evans raised of why the funding is larger, and the deputy city manager alluded to this, but we had an annexation, and we made a commitment a number of years ago as a council to fund human services on a $7 per capita basis. So every resident in the city of Bothell, we say $7 times the number of residents. There's no specific tax that collects that, but that's just an internal metric that we used and we committed to as a council to fund that. And so as our city grew with the annexation, that amount that we have dedicated as a council towards human services grew as well. And I appreciate those individuals who came and commented tonight during public comment and gave a specific touch point of how this money would help them and their programs. And I, that is true of all the programs that we're funding. And so I think I just wanted to kind of give that historical background of why that amount increased. And I appreciate the questions that Councilor Evans asked.
Great. Councilmember Sandberg. Shoot.
Well, I just wanted to thank you and Linda for all the effort that you went through in going through all of these applications. And I know that you and those of us on the committee gave a lot of consideration to making sure we were serving the Snohomish County portion of Bothell, the King County portion of Bothell, that we were providing for a breadth of services from child to senior to substance abuse to domestic violence to backpacks for kids to meals. I mean, so I think we've really provided a breadth of services, and I agree with you. It seems like a large dollar amount out of our budget, but our population has increased, and I believe our needs have increased, and so I think this is a decision that we made as a compassionate city to serve less fortunate, and in helping people become more self-sufficient. I mean, that is a cost savings that we might not have a specific analysis to tell us what that result is. And I think that it's really important that I think on the last column there, we specifically looked at Bothell residents served by these programs. And so that was an important factor, something that we asked the applicants to directly address. And some we serve more Bothell residents, others we serve less Bothell residents. You can't make a direct comparison on like a cost per unit, because the difference between, housing a domestic violence victim is going to be different than providing a backpack for kids. But I think this really is a measure of the compassion that we have in our city. And I think that was a great direction that the previous council made. And so I will be supporting the motion.
What motion?
Well, I don't want to make it until everybody's had a chance to comment. Okay, I'd like to make the motion to consider approval of the 2015-2016 Human Services Grants Awards.
A second.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
I already did.
All right. So I'll speak to your motion. I'll definitely be voting in favor of your motion. We have a lot of hurt in our world. Read the headlines, read CNN, whatever it may be, and you can see tragedies happening in Pakistan, Philippines, and around the world. We certainly have tragedies in regards to poverty here and homelessness at home, troubles within families or with individuals with substance abuse. So my heart is heavy tonight in this regard, and I'm definitely going to be voting in favor. There's many faith-based organizations that are out there supporting families within their congregations or out. We certainly see representatives here of other organizations that are some are faith, some are not, that are reaching out in the community to meet a need. So I'm glad as the City of Bothell we have the opportunity to do so as well. Councilmember Evans.
I will be supporting the motion also, and we did have some people here testifying or commenting on the program, and I guess I want to just put a little plug in for our North Shore Senior Center, because I do am down there quite a bit, attending various meetings and things, and they do a great job. We have, if not the best, one of the best senior centers in the nation right here in our city, and we're fortunate to have that, and they provide great services for our seniors, as do all of these programs provide good services. But that's one I'm familiar with and have been involved with, and certainly appreciate their effort on this and all the others also. I will be supporting the motion.
Great. Seeing no other, if everybody could vote for the motion Councilmember Sandberg made and seconded by Councilmember Lamb. And if clerk can display, passes unanimously. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate you leading us through the discussion this evening. That leads us to the agenda. Oh, we did add an item.
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor, I had, we had discussed earlier this year about adding, restoring a portion of the stipend that used to go to the Planning Commission that we discontinued during the economic downturn. And so I would make a motion tonight that we reinstate, beginning January 1st, a $100 per month stipend for the members of our Planning Commission. That would come out to $8,400 a year, or $16,800 over the biennium. I had a chance, so that's my motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, can you restate the motion?
The motion is to to put in place a $100 per month stipend for members of the Planning Commission.
Do you have an idea where you're drawing that from currently?
Well, that's my I restated my motion, so I'm happy to speak to it, and we can have questions of that. I'll have this. I spoke with the city manager, and he said that was something that we could accommodate within the budget.
Sure, Mr. Stowe.
We do anticipate to be able to accommodate that request. You remember at the last meeting we discussed the additional property tax proceeds that were not necessarily planned in the budget, but we were notified late by King County. So we have sufficient funds, and we'll be able to make a budget amendment next year that would accommodate that request, likely do it during the mid-biennium review.
Perfect. Thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion or let others?
I'll let others speak if they'd like to.
Sandberg?
Can I make an amending motion?
You have the floor.
I would make the amending motion that we provide for that additional $100 per month stipend from the projected increase from city council salaries for the upcoming biennium.
Okay, do you have another motion? No, I know. Another motion?
You're giving me the dirty look.
Or amendment?
Well, I'm trying to think about where that money's going to come from. So
I think we just heard.
I guess I don't have any other suggestions on the fly, not having had time to think about this in advance and review the budget. So the immediate thing that came to my mind was the increases that are planned for council.
Great. Councilmember Rayam.
Can I just ask an inquiry of Councilmember Sandberg? So I was under the understanding we don't get an increase automatically at the beginning of next year. It's whenever you're up for re-election after next year. Is that not the case?
To be honest, I haven't paid as much attention to that
Yeah.
salary.
It's huge.
Salary,
you guys.
and to use the word salary.
We can't.
Yeah, we do have a salary commission that's.
Yeah,
directing our-
there's a salary commission, and there is a COLA provision, but not this coming year, but the following year. So, but again, those are salaries that are determined by the salary commission, and you don't have the ability to raise or lower them.
But I thought one of the speakers this evening said we had ultimate power and we could do whatever we want as council. Do you have any further? No. Okay. Councilmember Evans.
Well, I will be supporting the motion. I actually thought we included this in the 2014 budget. I remember during the tough times we took it away, but then I thought we added it back, and apparently we have not added it back. I briefly discussed it with the city manager also, and I don't know how much deeper that pot is out there of that extra tax money. I'm sure it's getting kind of shallow, but apparently the staff is confident that we do have adequate funding to support this, and I do support it. These people do a tremendous job for us, put in a lot of time. So this is a token. It certainly doesn't cover all their time, but I think they are important, and I think this is a reasonable amount to start with and consider in future years. So I'll be supporting the motion.
And I will also be supporting the motion. I didn't serve on Planning Commission. I think both of you served on Planning Commission. The stipends were in place at that point, I think, right? Okay, I think it's just the amount of activity that they put in is similar to what the council does, and it seems to be a good opportunity for us to support, even just a portion of their time. Want to chip in on one more item?
Yeah, having served on the Planning Commission for 10 years, and I was the recipient of a $300 per month stipend, if I remember correctly. I think $100 per month certainly honors their commitment. We never can pay people what they're fully worth, but I think that the work that they do is important enough to get compensated for. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Great, thanks, Tris. Councilmember Lamb, any further comments, or go to a vote?
Go to a vote.
Everybody could place their vote for the motion that's on the floor, made by Councilmember Lamb, seconded by Councilmember Evans. The clerk can display. Passes unanimously. We will be going into executive session this evening. I don't expect that we'll be coming back from executive session, and what we'll be discussing is personnel matters.
For about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? So we'll be 10 minutes, and we'll most likely adjourn directly from executive session. Thank you, everybody, and Merry Christmas.